Hey, what's up, guys? How's everyone doing? Today we have a
Hey, what's up, guys? How's everyone doing?
today we have a special treat. We actually have an alumni from SVS gonna come in and teach us a little bit about some tech, teach us about how the recruiting process went for him. He's gonna be able to talk a lot about his prior experiences and how that led him to where he is today, which is at APM at Uber, which is an extremely prestigious program. So we're really excited to have Michael on today. And as soon as he joins our Zoom, we'll get this started and we'll get right into it because obviously we only have him available for a short amount of time. Hey, what's up, Kenny? So also throughout this entire meeting, if you can, just drop questions you have for him. Obviously, he's fresh out of college, so like he's super like chill. You guys can ask him anything. It doesn't have to be about business, doesn't have to be about product management. It could be literally whatever you guys want. So I would definitely take advantage of that. He's a great resource. Zach, what is up, my friend? Does anybody have anything, that they want to know before he gets in, some general stuff about tech recruiting that I can touch into? Actually, I think Michael's here now.
Hello.
Hey, what's up, Michael? Thanks for joining.
Hello. Yeah.
Especially because it's so early for you. Was it 9:30?
Nah, that's not that early.
For college kids, still early.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
All right. So just to get in a little bit, I just want to tell everyone a little bit about you. Michael was our president. Michael actually started the Venture Team Mentorship Program, and he has started most of our other initiatives, including Data Design Bootcamp. He started, the research team. So Michael's very essential from bringing SVS from like our small infancy stage to where we are now on campus. So we're super excited to have Michael here today. And yeah, Michael, how you doing?
I am doing well. It's exciting to be back. I've missed SVS a lot.
Definitely, yeah. And then so before we get into like the hard, kind of the brunt of the thing, I just want to ask you, what have you been doing during your quarantine? What have you been doing in general? What's that look like?
Yeah, for sure. Before I answer, do you have the YouTube link that you could just like send me? Because I am only on the Zoom and it's very awkward not seeing a chat and more things. But yeah, no, during quarantine, so I think some people probably know this, but I'm really into cooking. So prior to quarantine, I actually ran like a fine dining restaurant out of my apartment, which was really fun, but can't do that now since we have all this shelter in place stuff. So I started posting TikTok videos, which I think some people here know about. And it's been great, honestly. Like I think I've been doing that. Soccer has started up again, so I've been watching some soccer again. But overall, with work from home, it's pretty much just that and working.
Well, that sounds pretty nice. I heard from somebody maybe you had over 50K followers for TikTok. Is that true?
So I think on TikTok I'm approaching 50K. So if people here want to go follow, we can get me closer. But yeah, close to 50K.
Very nice. Okay, so you know what? We don't have your time for too long, and I want you to be able to have your full amount. So I think everyone now, Michael's actually going to teach you a lesson, which I've watched plenty of. But if you haven't, it's going to be a treat. So Michael, you can get right into it now.
Cool, awesome. I will share my screen. I have some slides. One sec.
Do you have the privilege, or make you host?
I should be able to.
Okay, perfect.
Can folks see that? Okay, I think they can. Awesome. So I just want to kind of share a little bit about kind of what it's like to recruit for tech. What are the actual tech roles? Why is it great to recruit for tech roles? For those of you who were in SVS when I was there, my personal my personal mission at NYU was to get more people to recruit for tech, because I think that it's not as easy in terms of like having a straightforward recruiting process as banking, but it's not as difficult as people think either. So I personally think that, if you are interested in tech as a field, which I think you should be because it's great, I think this is kind of the first step towards like, how can we actually go about recruiting for tech? It's a little bit difficult, but once you get the ropes down, it's actually quite easy. I put my email here if you want to reach out or anything like that. Would be happy to help any SVS people. But yeah, let's get into it. So just to do a quick little intro of myself, I think Joe already did a little bit, but I went to NYU. I majored in business and CS as a double major. I grew up in Cupertino, so really close to Silicon Valley, all the tech here. And I'm back home because of COVID. There's no point in paying rent. I work at Uber, so I'm on the Uber Eats subscription team, and I'll go briefly into the things that I've been doing in a little bit. And then some of my hobbies, like I was saying, are cooking, traveling, but can't do that right now. And then I really like mind games. I think Taco knows this, Joe knows this, a lot of people know this, but like Avalon, Resistance, those types of games, I'm a big fan of. And I was also president of SVS, so hello again. Cool. So I wanted to take a little bit of time to just like subtly flex on kind of my path into tech. And the reason here is not really just a flex. It's mostly just to show you that like you can really take any path you want and like you can get to whatever point you want. I think people have this misconception that like, I have to do X, Y, Z, and then I will get to this place. And in more traditional business roles like consulting and banking, that might be true. But in tech, you can really do like anything. And I really did like everything. I didn't even put all my stuff here, but I did PM internships, I did growth and marketing internships, I did UX design, I did VC, I did UX research, like all these different things. And like wound up in a similar spot to someone who like did software engineering for 3 internships and then decided to transition to PM. So I think there are like lots of different ways that you can kind of enter the tech world, enter product, enter whatever you want to do. And kind of this is just me saying like, hey, don't worry about it too much, because as long as you're doing the right things at a high level in terms of like getting skills and all these sorts of things, then you'll be totally fine. So I think the first question that I think is important to answer is, why should you even recruit for tech, right? I think like a lot of people don't even really know what tech is or what the benefits are. And when they see them, they're like, oh my God, this is like amazing. Why am I not doing this? So the 3 big reasons I think here are: 1, you get a lot of impact. So there's a ton of autonomy and responsibility, and I'll walk you through some of the projects that I've been working on. And it's just like insane how much responsibility you're given as an intern or as someone who's like just out of college. So that's number 1. Number 2 is work life. So I know that this is a foreign concept to lots of people who are doing more businessy roles, but you work pretty normal hours. I think it's not. There's nothing like too crazy. Obviously, you'll have some days that you'll be working a little bit harder and whatnot, but it's never going to be the banking hours. It's never going to be the consulting hours. It's going to be pretty chill for the most part. And a lot of people in tech have their like side hobbies and their side passions, and they can dedicate a lot of time to that. And then lastly, I think this is one that most people directly compare to banking or to other businessy careers: perks and pay. I personally think that, definitely on a per hour basis, you're going to be making more money, but also on just like a pure numbers basis, you'll probably be making just as much. But plus you get all these like nice perks, free food, massages, stock, unlimited vacation. So it's ultimately, there are like lots of reasons why you should be in tech. And yeah, so I just wanted to tell you a little bit just to kind of highlight this point a little bit more. I'll spend like 5-10 minutes just talking about the things that I've worked on, which I think highlight kind of those points that I had before around impact and making a huge impact. So I'm part of an APM program at Uber, which is you rotate between 3 different teams, and then you're the product manager on that team. So my first team was driver loyalty. Basically, I was in charge of everything to do with our driver loyalty product, which was a huge responsibility, especially just coming out of college. But we built this kind of thing where, every X number of trips, we give you bonus points. We have this really nice messaging, this beautiful graphics that make people feel kind of recognized for being on the platform and giving them that little boost in terms of points on our rewards program as well. So that was kind of the first project that I worked on. The second one was Eater real-time pricing, which was completely different. It's all about, as you can see in the diagram here, supply and demand are going to be mismatched on Uber Eats a lot. Sometimes people want to order too much and we don't have enough couriers to deliver it. How do we balance those things? And I have some funny stories about kind of that, but basically any pricing changes in real time, that was under my scope in the second rotation. And then lastly, I'm now on the Eats subscriptions team. I'm doing everything to do with partnerships. So I think like anytime we want to give free trials to partners or have like external partners, business partners, those are kind of the products that I'm working on right now. And it's like a huge undertaking. Subscriptions is a big priority for Uber Eats as well. So just a few random stories that I had here around like why I think tech is great. So first off, for those of you who don't know, Dara is our CEO at Uber. And I think I just get random pings from him sometimes because like I am the domain expert for a particular product and he wants to know more about that product. So I think like literally he'll just message me at like 10 or 11 p.m. and be like, hey, I want this. And it's very stressful. It's a lot of like responsibility. But I think, if you join a tech company, that's pretty common. The CEO just having insight into your product, the CEO just like pinging you. I think even at a company as large as Uber is. The second story here is around like my time on the second rotation. Turns out this just goes to show you how much kind of impact and responsibility you can get. Turns out that some of our systems were not really working properly. So we had like, it was really, really hot one day in San Francisco, and then DoorDash was also having an outage, so they were down. So like our systems basically said that we needed to shut down the San Francisco market. So for like an hour, no one could order anything on Uber Eats, and it was my fault. And because we had a lot of Uber Eats employees in SF, we just got a ton of like angry messages saying, hey, like I can't order anything. The market is completely down. Why is this happening? And all that sort of stuff. And I think like you can get so much responsibility working in tech that you can literally break a market, which is what I wound up doing. And then the last thing here is just around like, I'll talk about empathy building later because I think that's a super important skill. But I think, we take an APM trip between our first and second rotations to 4 places across the world. We went to Seattle, London, Bangalore, and Taipei. And I think in London, we wound up actually doing Uber Eats deliveries. So mind you, it was pouring rain, and we were doing this like Uber Eats food deliveries. And also in London, everything is the opposite side of the street. So we had no idea where we were. We were driving or biking on the wrong side of the street, and it was pouring rain. It was just like a crazy experience. But these are the kinds of things that I think you won't actually get to experience in other fields. In tech, they care a lot about knowing your customers. They talk a lot about, building that empathy. And I think like that's so true because you actually just learn so much from doing that. So all in all, like those stories are basically just to show you like, hey, you are going to get a lot of responsibility if you work in tech, if you want to recruit for tech and do all that sort of good stuff. And it's just like, what do you want out of your career that really determines what career path you'll take. So, I've talked a lot about like kind of the stuff that I've done. I'll pause there really quickly just in case anyone has any questions. I don't know how you guys normally do questions, so feel free to ask questions if there are any right now.
Yeah, I guess I saw one in the chat that you can touch on. Someone was asking about a specific experience, and they said, what was the 10-person startup you were working in? and when did you do it?
Yeah. So the 10% startup was a company called Rapid SOS. They were really small back when I joined. And yeah, it was a freshman year internship. I think honestly, like if you want to do internships in the spring or fall, it was my fall freshman year. And if you want to do internships like in the fall and spring, small startups are probably the way to go. You probably won't get paid that much because they don't have that much money and all that stuff. But it was a really great experience because I can look back on the app now that they have, and like even now I can see like, hey, this is something that I designed or something that I helped build. So it's a really cool experience. But yeah, I think that smaller internships are great for like early on in your career.
Yeah, if you can just go into that a little bit more. For like how do you weigh like a small internship opportunity versus a larger internship opportunity? And
Yeah.
especially like if you can try to go like maybe and throughout different stages in your college career, what you would do.
Yeah, so I think it's so one, I think we should all not take these internships for granted. Obviously, you will take what you can get to some extent, but I think the main difference between small and big companies is small companies, you will have less mentorship, you'll have less guidance, but you'll probably have much more responsibility. You'll learn a lot more on the job. I think there's a balance there. Like I prefer working at small-ish companies. So 10 people was probably too small for me, but I really like the sweet spot of like 200-ish people where, you have some mentorship, you have some sort of structure, but there's still a lot of new things to do. The way that I see it is like, if you want to do, something like a product role, I think there's a very big difference between a good PM and a weak PM. So out of college, the reason I joined Uber and did like an APM program is because I knew that if I wanted to be a good PM, like this is, I need that guidance and that mentorship in understanding how to be a good PM. If you're early on in your career and you're like doing internships, like you don't really need that guy. Like it's totally fine. You're only going to be there for 3 months anyways. So it's like not a super big deal if you don't pick up all of the skills necessary within that 3 months. Plus, I think it's like easier generally to find internships at smaller companies. It's generally like they're posting all the time, and I'll walk through the timelines in a little bit. But I think overall, it's like, there's a lot more of those roles. And then two, like it's great to just start learning on the job right away and figuring out what you like and dislike. And I'll also touch on that a little bit.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. And then last thing, I don't know if this is a transition into kind of what you're going to talk about. This is more of a product related question. Yep. Delta Echo said, I feel like there's a chicken and egg problem with product roles. Everybody wants experience, but no one's willing to place that bet on you. So is there any advice that you have for our SVS members in how to like kind of land your first product role?
Yeah. I'll touch on this later, but let me actually first get into like what are the actual different roles, because I suspect a lot of people don't actually even really know what some of these roles are. So I think there's a lot of things that you can do in tech. Like when I say you're recruiting for tech or you're going into tech, like there's so many different things. You can do all of these different things and more. But I think that's too complicated. If I were to simplify it down into 5 main buckets of roles, I would say you first have product, which is kind of the question that we're touching on, which is essentially like, what are we actually building? Like, why are we building this thing? And then like, what do we actually wind up building? What are the new features that we're going to be creating? To do science or data analyst role, I think you're answering questions around like, did what we build work? So you take a look at products and you look at how effective they were. You look at, are users engaged with them? Are users using them? All that sort of stuff. If you want to do a product design, UI design, graphic design, anything like that, that's really answering the question of like, what will this look like or how will this feel? And then your last two are engineering. Obviously, I think most people are familiar with what engineering is. It's like, how will this product work? And then non-tech in terms of like biz dev or corporate strategy or sales or marketing or any of these things. It's really about how do we grow this product? So I think thinking about it in that way is super important in terms of like, how can we, like what category do you think you fit into best? personally, I am a product manager and I enjoy product because I like thinking about, high level, what are the problems that we want to solve? And then how do we actually solve those problems? I think some people enjoy like data a lot more because they're like, whoa, you can get all these really, really cool insights just from looking at some of the data that we've been working with. Designers really love kind of taking a concept and then bringing it to life and really driving like what that'll look like. Engineers, I think, tend to have this like, oh, I really love building things kind of mindset. So, as they kind of build the product, they're, working through some really complex problems that they have a lot of fun with. And then folks that are in non-tech roles, I think they're really into how can we support the business? How can we turn this product that, should have business impact to begin with, but how can we turn that into actual tangible business impact going forward? So just to give a primer, those are kind of the roles that I personally think exist in tech. Now I know a lot of you are probably just thinking like, okay, you want me to tell you how to get a job. So I will do that. So to start off with a few timelines, I think there's fall, winter, spring, summer. In the fall, that's when a lot of your big companies will wind up recruiting, especially for tech roles, some non-technical roles, but mostly tech roles. If you look at programs like APM programs, Google, Facebook, Uber, Twitter, Microsoft, all those roles happen or recruit in the fall. Usually from August to October. So, if you're going to be recruiting for big tech companies, that's usually the time frame that you'll be looking at. Once you move into winter, I think this is when like a lot of startups start the recruiting process. The reason startups start late is because they don't really know what their needs are until later on. Like, big companies plan years in advance, startups plan months in advance. So if they don't really know what they're going to be doing in 6 months, then they can't really recruit. But they start recruiting in the winter, and then non-tech roles start opening up for larger companies as well in the winter. This might be changing. I think I've seen some more non-tech roles start opening up early, so it's always just best to check as early as possible. In the spring, this is kind of your peak, especially for folks that are freshmen, sophomores earlier. This is your peak, like, hey, startups are fully recruiting for like all these roles. Startups are probably the most likely thing for folks that are early on in their careers in college. So I think that this is kind of the peak period, especially now, like, okay, I'm giving this talk in mid-October. It's a little bit late to recruit for big companies, I think. But, spring is coming up. You can use the winter to prep. And spring is really like kind of where a lot of this stuff sort of happens. And then summer, I've chatted with some people here about this, but this is really your chance to just catch up, start prepping for the next recruiting cycle, start doing whatever interview prep you need to do. I'll walk you through kind of some of the like projects that you can be doing, things like that. So yeah, that's the overall timeline for recruiting. I think it's pretty similar to kind of how a lot of different roles work, but it's good to just kind of be aware of it at a high level. Cool. So if you want to guarantee a job in tech, I think the easiest way to do it is just become an expert in technology, design, and business. Now, obviously, that's very difficult, so I would not recommend that you actually go through and do all of that because it takes up a lot of time. But honestly, like if you want to be well-versed for any job in tech ever, if you do all three of those things and you like learn all three of those deeply, then you'll be totally fine. However, I realize that there are limitations to that. So I think the biggest thing, in my opinion, is make sure that you're passionate and that you stand out. I hate the term like personal branding. I hate the fact that like that is a thing. But I think at the end of the day, like that is what separates you from other people. In businessy roles like banking, consulting, it's basically, all right, you have your resume and then, you'll have some interviews. And if you do well on the cases, if you do well on those questions, then you'll be fine. What I've noticed in tech is like, they care a lot more about like you as a person, which is nice and also not nice because it's nice because like, hey, all right, I understand that like, I'm not as technically gifted as some other people. So like, it's nice that they're kind of want to get to know me as a person. But it's also not nice because it's like, oh, wow, now I actually have to worry about like how I come off and like how I'm perceived and all these sorts of things. I think the best way to answer this is like, if someone were to describe you, what would they say? And then how memorable is that, right? because I think that's like the biggest pull. People want to work with passionate people. People want to work with interesting people, and people want to work with people that are easy to get along with. So I think like, honestly, I've started interviewing with people, or I've started interviewing people for the Uber APM program, and the ones that always stand out are the ones who, one, are just clearly excited to work at Uber. Like, you can see kind of my energy and excitement just talking about these things. I think like that sort of same energy, when I see it in an interview, that's like, oh wow, that's like a really great sign. And then it's also like, I see their interests and I see, you know, like, hey, wow, this person literally is, I interviewed this person recently who wound up getting an offer, and like their background in their room was just a bunch of photography stuff. So I was like, oh, whoa, like, are you into photography? And I started talking to him about that. And he just talked about like the reasons he loved photography. And it was just great seeing someone so passionate about something. So I think like this is super underrated. I think a lot of people know this and try to do this, but they focus too much on school. They focus too much on like recruiting specifically, all that sort of stuff. And they forget that like at the end of the day, like you're a human being. You need to be special, stand out in some way. More tangibly, I think in terms of skills, you know, I think one thing that I'm trying to bridge a lot of these different roles. One is being super detail oriented. I think being a perfectionist is so underrated nowadays. A lot of people, you know, I think gloss over some of the details, but I think they're super, super important. But at the same time, I think you should be very good at simplifying difficult problems. I think that's a skill that everyone should have in general, no questions asked. This is kind of tied to what I was saying before, but deeply empathetic. I personally think that empathy with like customers, empathy with other people is very, very important. And it ties into like being an incredible communicator, which is that next point. Then the last two are like, when you're just coming out of college, like no one cares about your management. No one cares about like your, like any of those sorts of skills because they don't exist yet. They really care about like, can you get this job done? So you should really try to establish yourself as someone who is like, I can execute on this particular problem. And then lastly, I think this is very difficult, but try to be a jack of all trades and a master of one. I think IDEO, which is a design consulting firm, has this great concept called a T-shaped person, which is essentially like, hey, we want to, you know, you want to have good breadth, which is the horizontal part of the T, but then also be like a specialist in one area and really be able to call yourself a master in that area. So I think trying to develop yourself like that is probably the best. And then last 2 points here, I think some tangible ways that you can get into tech. Number one, do side projects. I think starting a website, writing about tech, creating a design portfolio or a GitHub. Don't just do it for the sake of doing it. Do it because you like want to and want to like build those skills up. But I think that it's a great way of just showing that passion that I was talking about before, helping you stand out, all that sort of stuff. I personally am a big proponent of like, you should explore a bunch of different areas through internships, side projects, all that sort of stuff. I think like, you know, I did a bunch of internships and realized that I wanted to be a PM. I don't think a lot of people go through that same exercise, but really take the time to like actually think about what you want to do. You know, tech isn't for everyone, just like banking isn't for everyone, just like consulting isn't for everyone. So just like, you know, figure out what you want to do. Constantly evaluate the products you use. Don't take anything at face value. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. You know, you want to just always be, it's kind of related to that detail-oriented stuff. And then always work on your communication skills. You know, I think developing that logical style of thinking is super, super important and something that I think just is very, very underrated. A lot of people can think, but you know, if you can go from point A to point B and walk other people through that style of thinking, then I think that's obviously the best. And I realized that was all they understand, like what is going on in tech. I like to set up a check-in just like every 6 months. And that's usually a pretty good way that I just like have someone in my pocket that I can go to for like career advice. Make your resumes look nice. I think a lot of people, it's totally fine to apply with a standard resume, but if you want to improve your resume skills, here's mine, just like as reference. You know, it looks a lot nicer. I don't know if people can even see that. Yes, people can see that. Cool. But yeah, I'd say like, you know, just organize it better, make it look nicer, all that sort of stuff. And that'll be super, super helpful. And then I think, you know, the last few things are, number one, you should be looking at some fellowships. I think they have really great opportunities. I'm a KP fellow, which is gives you a really nice cohort of people to get to know. But like NEA Next, 8VC, I know that the Greylock Tech Fair also connects people to jobs. a lot of these programs will get you, a lot of kind of new career opportunities. And then lastly, be organized in your search. I know I talked to some people about this, but you should be creating some sort of goals doc. Here's mine. It's pretty detailed. You want it to be pretty detailed. I think that that's like very, very important. But this will help you really clarify like, hey, this is my goal. This is exactly how I'm going to get there. And then this is how I am going to define and measure this goal. And if you do that, it's like very, very easy to start saying, hey, I want to develop this skill. I want to do this or that, and so on and so forth. And then just make sure that you have one spot where like you are covering all of the processes that you have, all of the recruiting things that you have, whether it's classes that you need to take, projects that you want to do, personal hobbies, and career stuff. Because I think like personally, if you're not organized, it's going to be very, very hard to keep track of all of this stuff. In banking, you just go through on-campus recruiting. It's all kind of handled for you. Here, you'll be applying to like internships and all that sort of stuff. So if you are doing that, you need to have a place to keep everything organized. So I think like that ultimately is kind of what I think about tech recruiting. I encourage you to reach out. I think there are a lot of very, very exciting roles in tech for everyone. And I personally think that a lot of people don't consider it as a viable career path just because it's not through on-campus recruiting. If you really want to do it, you will find a way and you'll be able to figure it out. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Let's talk now. Any questions that anyone might have?
All right. Kenny said, as a freshman, I'm still relatively new to the technicals and programming and languages. So is it still possible to get an internship with a lack of technical knowledge?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, especially since you're just a freshman, like I really didn't take computer science classes until sophomore year. I think I took like intro CS freshman year, but that was about it. So I think like you totally have tons of time to either develop the knowledge if you want to, or a lot of roles don't actually require any technical knowledge. You should understand how systems work at a high level. Like, is this hard to build or not? But you don't actually need to know how to code. You don't need to know how to do any of that stuff. Like if you are a data scientist or an engineer, you probably do need to, but if you're a product manager, a lot of product managers don't know how to code. If you're a designer, most designers don't know how to code. If you want to do some non-technical roles, you probably don't know how to code or don't need to know how to code. So I would say like, yes, you can definitely, absolutely get an internship with a lack of technical knowledge. I don't think that there's anything stopping you from getting that.
Okay. And also kind of on that, where would you look, or where did you look to find some of those maybe smaller internships, or where did you go to find one of those opportunities?
Yeah. So I think the easiest is honestly just like a quick Google search. Like it just search up like fall internship or summer internship plus the location that you want to go to, whether it's NYC or SF or whatever. And you will just start finding a lot of stuff. Google Jobs obviously will have things. Indeed will obviously have things. I think the smaller resources that I used are things like Gary's Guide. I don't know if he still updates it, but it's just this like one guy who posted a ton of internships and like roles and careers in general. So I use that. But really like most of it was just, I literally was I'll take one day a week and I'll just scour through Indeed and go through like 20 pages of Indeed postings and just like take out a few that I like. Same with Google Jobs, take out a few that I like, and then just try to kind of organize them into a spreadsheet. But yeah, I think that those are kind of the best ones. In terms of really small companies, I think also AngelList is quite good. I think those companies are a bit too small for my search, but I know some people really want to work at like super small companies. So that's a great place for that as well. But yeah, AngelList and Gary's Guide if you want more like specific things. And then I think that you can't go wrong with a Google search on Google Jobs or Indeed.
Definitely. What are your thoughts on Stern's data science concentration? Do you recommend CS at CAS?
Yeah, so I have some very harsh views on Stern's data science concentration. I personally think that like it's a little bit misleading. If you think that you can be a data scientist after doing that, then you are absolutely wrong. The Stern data science concentration, in my mind, preps you to become a data analyst. And even then, you probably still need to learn a little bit more to become a proper data analyst. If you wanted to build up those same sorts of skills, honestly, I would recommend just doing a CS minor or something like that. It'll be much more useful. I think the unless it's changed, obviously I'm like a year or two out of college, but unless it's changed, I think when I was in college, the most difficult course was basically like an intermediate Python course that you could learn in like your second class in the CS program. So I would highly encourage you, if you are interested in developing some of those technical skills, really just do take a few CS classes. Even just going up to data structures will help you a ton. And to the point around like logical thinking that I was talking about before, I think if you take those CS courses, it'll really help you develop that sort of logical thinking that I think is super important.
Definitely. And Tony, thank you. Tony Kim, thank you for asking a question like that, not necessarily product related, because Michael obviously is a resource that can tell you about like school as well. He can tell you about cooking clearly. He is qualified for that. No, but in general, yeah, you guys can ask whatever you want, whatever you think helps out. So Vedant asked a question. As a product manager, what's one product that you consider particularly well designed and why? I think this is cool just to kind of get your inside knowledge and see like what is a PM like see in a product.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. And actually, I can actually let's just walk through a product. Oh wait, I just stopped sharing. My bad.
There you go.
I did not mean to stop sharing. What I did mean to do is exit out of this. There we go. Cool. Cool. So a product that I think is fantastic is Airbnb. I think a lot of people think that Airbnb is a fantastic product. But the one thing that I do want to kind of clear up is, I don't think you need to be a product manager in order to say this is a great product. I have loved Airbnb since like before freshman year. I've loved Airbnb for like years and years. And if you just come to the website, you'll like very clearly see why, right? I think Airbnb, their whole goal is around how can we share experiences and give you places to stay and like all these things in the most compelling way possible, in an authentic kind of way, right? So for example, I think the fact that they use a lot of imagery is really, really brilliant. I think it makes places look compelling. You can it makes it feel very unique. If you go to, for example, online experiences, well, I actually didn't even realize this. I had not looked at this page in a while, but like every single one of these, it's all about the creator. It's all about the host, and it's all about like uniqueness and bold colors and all those sorts of things, which I absolutely love. It's how can we highlight all of these amazing people, and you can even like see previews with just like them, which is really, really fun. But it's all about like how can we highlight all these amazing people and bring their experiences to life and kind of allow them to host experiences, allow them to host places and all these sorts of things. They continue to innovate in like, hey, these are, online experiences. How can we make them really compelling? Here's like a magic show. Here's like how you can bake some pastries, things like that. So I think like Airbnb is a fantastic product because one, it solves the actual problem that you have, which is like, hey, I want to do things in a place, or I want to like stay in a place, but it does it in such a way that's like, it just makes you feel like this is something that's authentic. I'm getting to know someone. I'm getting to know like, an actual person, an actual human being, as opposed to just being a part of a tour group and like not having that authentic experience. So I think, Airbnb is a great product that I think is super well designed, but I ultimately don't think like you need the product background to be able to do this. You can just go to random websites and say, hey, this is great or this is not great. Like, I personally think that LinkedIn is the worst product in existence. I think I have not once gone on LinkedIn and been pleased with a feature that I've seen. But that's not because I'm a product manager. That's because I just like hate the product. So I think you can totally just start doing this exercise. And that's kind of what I was saying around like, don't like just keep constantly evaluate the products that you have because it helps you build up that product intuition.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that's it's really fun to watch like someone kind of break it down because I think yeah, everyone can kind of learn how to do that. And that's part of like growing. And like you said, it's just about interest. It's about doing this on your own. And I mean, it's easy when you tell us to do it and then maybe we do it today, but like can we keep that up and do it tomorrow and the next day and actually like practice that skill routinely?
Yeah.
And we have an amazing question by Jay. Jay said, "How could you tell us how we can build our first experience in UX?"
Yeah, that is a great question. So personally, this is kind of the advice that I give to everyone. Let me open up a page here. So this is a site that is really, really great if you want to start just like designing things. If you put in your email address, the only thing that they'll tell you, the only thing that they'll kind of send you is every single day you will get a prompt, which is basically like, hey, actually, they might have examples here. They do not have examples, but basically you'll get a prompt every day that says, hey, like design a sign up flow or design a ticket or design a homepage, a landing page, or design like an ad or whatever. And your goal is to actually just design that each day. You don't have to do it every day. But I think it's like really, really great for building up skills. And the way that I actually do it is I actually just go to this website called Collect UI. And essentially they have all of the challenges on the side here. So even if you don't want to like sign up for this thing, you can just like go here and see what all the challenges are. And you can see like what other people have done. When you're just starting out in UX, I think just pick up a tool. I think Figma is one that SVS uses and one that I use a lot. Just pick up a tool and literally when you're just starting out, just try to copy like exactly what other people are doing, because it'll help you build up familiarity with the tool. It'll help you build up familiarity with like how to design things, and then like start playing around with, okay, how can I change this? How can I do this or that? And so on and so forth. I think that that's super important because it's like, hey, you know, I'm looking at what other people are doing, but at the same time, I'm also I'm also trying to put my own little spin on it. So if you really are interested in starting off in design, pick up a design tool, go to Daily UI or Collect UI, and just start copying designs until you get to the point where you feel comfortable making your own designs and having your own input on those sorts of things. I think that's probably the best advice that I can give.
Definitely. So now we're getting into we have a couple more more about like internship experience. One, Alex said, are there any structured internship programs for sophomores or opportunities more kind of random?
Yeah, there are definitely structured stuff. There's definitely structured stuff. I think a lot of the big companies will have it. I think I'm not sure what the timelines look like for some of them now, but I know that Facebook has their like pretty non-technical, but it's like called Facebook University. They have some for product design. They have some for data analysis. Those are for sophomores specifically. I think they might be recruiting now if you want to check it out. At least that was what I last heard. But the large companies will generally have like structured programs, I'd say. So especially for like freshmen and sophomores. Once you get to like junior year, they'll have a few structured programs for like APMs, APMMs, things like that. But I think they're definitely be comfortable in embracing like those more random opportunities as well. Because honestly, like if I did Facebook University, I don't think it would have been as good as my summer internship my sophomore year, because I just learned so much. I had such great connections and all that sort of stuff. So I would be totally fine just like embracing those random opportunities. If you kind of want to, you know, like just figure out what you want to do and what you want to get out of the program, and go to the place that you think you'll learn the most. Honestly, that's kind of the best advice that I can give. So short answer, yes, there are some structured programs, but be totally okay with just having some random opportunities come up to you as well.
Awesome. And then kind of another question about technical roles or internship roles. Someone was asking about like business roles in tech. So that's like non-product or design related. So if someone's asking if you can like expand and talk about some other like options.
Yeah. So I think there are a few different ones here. I'd say the most common one that's like closest related in terms of tech recruiting is product marketing or something around growth, something in that area. So I did product marketing and I did growth. I loved both of those kind of roles. That's all about like, hey, how can we work with the product team to actually make sure that these products like go get out to people? I think like there are these things called I'm an APM, which is associate product manager. There's also like associate product marketing manager, which is APMM. And I think that that's like a pretty structured program, a lot of roles around that. But I would say like growth and marketing roles are pretty easy to come by. Like I think there are a lot of them because every company needs to grow, and usually like it's cheaper to hire an intern, to be honest. And a lot of the things are things that interns can do. So I think that's probably the most common. The second most common, in my opinion, is probably something around like strategy or business development. I think that those ones are essentially roles where you like will probably need some finance courses down. It'll probably be similar to like a consulting role where it's like, hey, what should our strategy be in this area for the next like 2 or 3 years? I think those are very, very interesting roles. And it's a good alternative to consulting if you don't want to do like, all right, I'm going to be on 3-month projects, I'm going to be traveling a lot, all that sort of stuff. You can work for one company and really see it through. I'd say that that's kind of the second most common non-technical role. And then there's just like a lot of other stuff that you can probably be doing. Obviously, there's like finance roles. There are some things like sales and all that sort of stuff. But the two most common are probably growth, product marketing, something in the marketing area, and then also something in the strategy area.
Awesome. Now we got a question from Jonathan. Jonathan said, what is the role of networking in tech? How does that work?
Yeah, so this is a great question. I personally am really bad at networking, but maybe that's like a good sign for you, because I think networking obviously helps, right? It helps in every field. But I think unlike consulting or banking, where like you literally will not get interviews unless you're like networking, tech is a little bit different. Tech, you can like just cold apply to things and get jobs. So for example, like Uber, I wound up at Uber, but I didn't have any connection to the company. I didn't have anybody that I knew that worked there. I literally just like randomly applied online and I wound up getting the job. So I think there's definitely kind of opportunity for you to get by without networking. Obviously it helps. Like I did my fair share of networking, to say. Like I went to the Greylock Tech Fair and met a lot of cool companies there. I did reach out to like some people and just like wanted to get mentors. It was less about networking and more just about getting mentorship. But I do think it helps. I don't think it's entirely necessary. I would say focus a lot more on the point that I was saying around like, being unique and standing out and showing that you're passionate, because ultimately like that's what'll get your cold application to get to the top, right? It's, do I have a really unique set of experiences? Do I have a really unique story? Am I doing really cool things? So I'd focus a lot on that, to be honest.
Awesome. I think we caught up with chat. So now I have a couple of questions for you.
Nice.
If you were to go back and talk to freshman year Michael, what are some pieces of advice that you would like to give him? Not necessarily tech related, just anything.
So I think that's a good question. I think the advice that I would give myself is probably two things. One, I would say like I was pretty focused on, especially like freshman, sophomore year, I was pretty focused on like getting that internship or getting like whatever, getting into this career or whatever it is. I would say just like chill. Like, honestly, I think now that I think about it, the stuff that I did was just so unnecessary. And I think it's totally normal, right? Like you go into college and you're like, I need to like do well in my classes. I need to be fair, I didn't do well in my classes, but I need to do well in my classes. I need to get this internship in order to land this job, in order to be rich, in order to have this happy life. But I think like I look back on college and I think the best years of college for me were like junior, senior year, when you're supposed to be like in the middle of recruiting. Like that's the hardest period of time. You have your hardest classes, all that sort of stuff. I like really didn't care at all about any of that stuff. I was like, I'll recruit and I'll like try hard and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like I'm going to enjoy my time in college. I'm going to make sure that like I develop those unique experiences. Like I have just so many random talking points that I can talk about. You know, my senior year, I started that like fine dining thing out of my apartment. My sophomore and junior and senior year, like during finals week, I did this thing where, you know, every day during finals week, I would just go see a Broadway show instead of like studying for finals. And that wound up becoming a talking point because it's like I have now seen like 40 or 50 musicals, plays, all these sorts of things that like people are like, whoa, that's pretty cool. So honestly, like I would say number one, just like chill out, don't worry so much about everything. And number two, I would say probably just like explore a bit more. I think I personally did a pretty good job of this, but I think this is also just advice to like everyone. My biggest thing, and one of the reasons why I got so involved with SVS and like did so much in terms of like building up all these programs and all these sorts of things, is because I genuinely feel like you should kind of, you know, explore a lot of different things. Don't be boxed into just going into banking. Don't be boxed into just going into tech. You know, I like recruited for consulting a little bit. I came into business school wanting to be like a banker, so I definitely explored that. But just like explore a bunch of different options, find out what you like and what you dislike, because there are some people where finance is like the actual like perfect fit, and there are some people where like tech is the perfect fit. Just figure out what that fit is, and you'll be fine.
I think that's great advice. I think everyone's still figuring that out. I know I'm in my junior year and I'm still figuring that out. So freshman and sophomore, you definitely have time. And then we got a couple more questions here from the chat. Kenny asked, what is the mobility like in tech, like job mobility?
Yeah.
Both vertically and throughout company, like across companies.
Yeah. So the thing that I really love about tech is I think people are pretty accepting of the fact that you will just hop around jobs for a while. You know, I think in banking, you know, you do the 2 years and then out kind of thing, which is expected. But I think like once you kind of settle down in a company, after that, you're kind of expected to stay there for a little while. In tech, it's pretty normal for people to leave after 1 or 2 years in each company. So if you are not enjoying something, like you can totally just leave it. It's like totally fine. You know, we've had APMs, our APM program is 18 months. We've had APMs already leave like and go to a different company because they found an opportunity that they like, and so on and so forth. So I think between companies, very kind of easy and malleable. Vertically, I think the opportunity is really, really exciting because the great thing about tech is the dream is for everyone to go to a small-ish company and like just have it really take off and like have all your stock be worth billions of dollars. So I think like from a hierarchical standpoint, tech is much more flat. So the jumps are much larger, you know. If I like, for example, I'm an APM, if I went to another company, I would probably be like rated as a PM2, which is like 2 or 3 levels above me. So I think like every kind of jump you have will progress your career pretty significantly. So I think like vertically it's pretty quick acceleration. And then horizontally, it's like very easy to switch between companies as well.
Awesome. That was a great question, Kenny. Jay is just kind of clarifying about the resume. So you're saying if you're recruiting tech, should you have a creative resume?
Yeah, I mean, I think the general rule of thumb here is if it looks good, then go with it. If you do not trust your design skills and you don't think you can make one that looks pretty and is like really nice, totally fine to just stick with the Stern finance resume. You know, it does its job. It's very easy to parse, all that sort of stuff. But, you know, if you do want to try your hand at design a little bit more and you think you kind of have that inclination, it's always nice to have a separate resume for tech roles, because I think one, like for example, my resume, like it literally was like half of it was blue or something like that. So it just like stands out immediately on the page. And it just like looks nicer. It's like pretty well organized, all that sort of stuff. So I'd say like, if you want to, you totally can. But if you don't think that you can make it like better or more effective than your typical Stern finance resume, then don't do it. Just stick with your Stern finance resume. Honestly, it's like function over form, in my opinion. Like you want it to still be very functional. So the Stern resume is tried, tested. It's very functional. It works very well. If you can take that and adapt it to a better design, go for it.
Also, if I can add something, you don't just have to have one resume. So if you're applying to if you want to go into UX, position, yeah, maybe you probably should have a creative resume. That probably will help. But then if you're also applying to like, something a little bit less creative, you can give them your standard, like you don't have to have just one. You can have both and like, feel it out and pick when you want to use whatever one.
Yep, absolutely.
Tony asked specifically about you and what are your 10-year plans and where do you see yourself? Which I think is a fantastic question, Tony.
That is a good question. I've actually coincidentally started thinking about like that longer term plan because like I said, I think once you get out of college, you're stuck in execution mode. You just want to be known as the guy who does like good work. But now I've kind of taken a breath and started to think about longer term. What does my career look like? All that sort of stuff. I think there's a few things. One, I will definitely be working in a smaller company. I think my sweet spot, like I said, is around 200 to 300 people. I love building products and kind of leading product areas. So the two paths that I could take, one is working at that smaller company and kind of being like the head of product for a particular area, or starting something on my own. I think I'm personally not a big fan of just like doing a startup for the sake of doing a startup. But if there's an area that I'm passionate about, if there's a problem that I really think needs to be solved, then I think that's one area that I could see myself also kind of going into. And I think that's honestly a pretty typical answer for people that are in product. It's work at a smaller company, try to make it big, or, start your own thing and try to solve a critical problem. The third option is, who knows, maybe in 10 years, I'll just be like a food influencer. I'll be the next like Binging with Babish. And then I'll just like do all this stuff on YouTube and whatever. Who knows if YouTube will even exist. But I think there's a lot of different paths. I think the most common one or the most likely one is like, I'll join this smaller company and try to really, really help it grow and really accelerate going forward. Other things are just like, I want to live in London or like abroad for a few years. I think that would be really interesting. Would also love to, go to just like a completely different type of company. Uber is a transportation company. It's consumer. I'd love to work in like a B2B, much more enterprisey kind of company at some point, but ultimately come back to consumer. So you can even tell like now I'm all about experimenting. I'm all about like trying new things and just like figuring out what you like.
Yeah, I don't think that ever has to end. I don't think that's just a college thing.
Yeah.
I think that you should always feel free to like try something new. If you've never tried it, you're interested.
Yeah.
Kenny kind of asked about how is it that you like, how do you apply for another job when you're already in a role? Like, what's that like? And how do you like look for different opportunities while you're working?
That is a fantastic question, Kenny, because I have started to just like not apply to anything yet, but just start to look and see what else is out there. And I had that exact same question, which is like, oh, what happens? Because like your employer or your future employer will look for referrals. So I'm like, wait, well, they just like asked my boss about me and I'm like still in this job. Generally, the way it works is, you apply, you don't really tell anyone until you get offers. Obviously, you want to keep things secret. But in terms of like referrals and things like that, they'll usually go to their recruiters are smart enough not to go to your current company. And you can explicitly tell them not to do that. But ultimately it's like, hey, you can just take some time out of the day, especially now that Uber is work from home until next July. So like nobody really knows what I'm doing when I'm not in a meeting. So you can totally just like, kind of look for those other opportunities, interview, and then once you get the offer, then like let your boss know and say like, hey, I got this other offer, like either I'm thinking it through or like I'm going to leave. And that's usually how it works.
All right. That's good. We caught up a chat, which is nice. And we know we're going to have to let you go in about a minute. So give us one recipe, one dish to make. If you were to give us a dish, what's something to cook for tonight?
So my go-to, like if I want something really quick and really delicious, is just like take spaghetti or linguine or something like that, cook it, and then like add olive oil, red pepper flakes, salt, pepper, and then a bit of parsley and lemon juice and garlic. And like it'll take you like 15 minutes. It's super easy. Anyone can do it at home. If you want to add a little bit of protein to it, add like some seafood because it goes really well, like shrimp or something like that, which is really delicious. But that's probably my go-to recipe. And just a quick wrapping up thing as well. Like, again, SVS was basically my entire. I did SVS more than I did school, to be honest. In college, so definitely feel free to reach out. My email is my last name at uber.com. I don't really check LinkedIn, but if you want to message or add me there, like feel free. But yeah, I would be happy to help folks here in any way possible, because I do think like this club is amazing. I think like the people that are in charge of it now, Francis, Joe, the whole e-board, everyone, obviously are all people that I've worked with closely and I trust a lot. And yeah, like Taco said, go follow me on TikTok. My TikTok is at Legere.
All right. Thanks so much, Michael. Thanks for stopping in. Thanks for leading this meeting. And I know everyone appreciates, how generous you're being and letting us reach out to you. But yeah, guys, so you heard it from the Uber APM himself, and the former president of this club. So I think that's pretty much all for us for this meeting. That's really what we had planned. I'm going to hang out for a little bit longer just to kind of, answer any final questions. But Michael, unfortunately, he's busy. So Michael's going to have to head out.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Michael. All right. Franny, if you can cue up some music. And we'll ride this out. Maybe we'll spend some time. If anyone has any reactions to it, I would love to hear your reactions. If you have any follow-up questions, I could do my best to answer. Kenny, I use a paste. I use a styling paste. Again, just a huge thank you, Michael. I think you're still in the chat for a little bit longer. Just a huge thank you to Michael. We're always constantly trying to refine things, but obviously the basis of this club was largely built on the initiatives that Michael made. So it's always great to have him back. All right, well, doesn't seem like we have too many reactions as of yet. Feel free to reach out to him. Feel free to reach out to anyone on eBoard. Coffee chat us, please. I mean, a lot of us are in the city doing nothing anyway, and we'll love to stay outside with you guys, grab a cup of coffee, something like that. We could talk about any of this stuff. We could talk about school, whatever you guys need. Yeah, with that, I guess we're good for the week. All right, next week we have a speaker, most likely, so that's super exciting. So keep your eyes open for that. And yeah, everyone have a great week.